Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, one of the most mysterious and devastating mental disorders, drastically distorts a person's sense of reality, often creating a frightening alternate world filled with delusions and hallucinations. Early records of schizophrenia-like symptoms appear in ancient Egyptian and Greek medical texts, where individuals were described as seeing visions or hearing inexplicable voices. These phenomena were often attributed to divine punishment or curses, resulting in various spiritual treatments. In medieval Europe, those showing signs of schizophrenia were frequently labeled as mad or possessed by demons, subjected to harsh treatments like exorcisms, confinement, or physical restraint. It was only in the late 19th century that German psychiatrist Emil Crippling recognized it as a distinct mental illness he termed dementia praecox. Later, Swiss psychiatrist Eugen Bleuler renamed it schizophrenia, derived from Greek words meaning split mind, emphasizing the disorder's disconnection between thoughts, emotions, and reality. For those living with schizophrenia, the disorder often leads to profound social isolation, as hallucinations, paranoia, and disorganized thinking can create distrust even toward close family and friends. Figures like Mary Todd Lincoln, wife of President Abraham Lincoln, exhibited schizophrenia-like symptoms that led to her isolation and eventual institutionalization, highlighting the social stigma that surrounded the disorder. Before the development of effective treatments, those with schizophrenia were often confined to asylums, where they faced rudimentary, sometimes inhumane treatments. Today, antipsychotic medications and cognitive therapies offer some relief, though symptoms often persist and social stigma remains. Schizophrenia's lifelong impact on individuals and their families underscores its place as one of history's most complex and isolating mental disorders, challenging both modern science and societal acceptance. Bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder, known for its extreme mood swings between mania and depression, has profoundly affected individuals throughout history, including some of the most brilliant minds. Ancient civilizations had no understanding of the disorder, but they observed symptoms, often interpreting manic or depressive episodes as imbalances in bodily humors. The Greeks, for example, attributed intense mood swings to an excess of black bile or yellow bile. It wasn't until the 20th century that researchers began distinguishing bipolar disorder as a unique mental illness with distinct phases of mania and depression. This recognition allowed for more specialized treatment approaches and marked a significant shift in understanding mental health. Famous figures suspected of having bipolar disorder include Ludwig van Beethoven, whose mood shifts between euphoric highs and despairing lows fueled his compositions. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill famously referred to his black dog of depression, which seemed to coexist with periods of intense energy and focus, possibly indicative of bipolar disorder. Vincent van Gogh also displayed symptoms that suggest bipolar disorder, with his paintings capturing the intense emotions that marked his life and possibly drove his art. Today, treatment options such as lithium, mood stabilizers, and therapy have improved the lives of those with bipolar disorder, yet managing it remains complex. The stigma associated with bipolar disorder, alongside its challenging symptoms, continues to impact not only sufferers, but also their loved ones, making it a historically and socially significant disorder. Major depressive disorder. Major depressive disorder, MDD, is much more than temporary sadness. It is a persistent state of hopelessness and emotional paralysis that can strip individuals of motivation, joy, and even the will to live. Evidence of depression dates back to ancient civilizations, where Greek physician Hippocrates identified melancholia as an ailment caused by an excess of black bile, one of the 4 bodily humors he believed influenced both physical and mental health. This theory of humors dominated Western medical thought for centuries, leading to treatments such as bloodletting, purging, and herbal remedies, though these approaches were largely ineffective. Depression was seen not as a mental health condition, but as a physical imbalance, leaving sufferers misunderstood. In medieval and Renaissance Europe, those with depressive symptoms were often ostracized and seen as morally weak or spiritually flawed. Rather than being recognized as a disorder, depression was often attributed to a lack of faith or a weak character. Historical figures like Abraham Lincoln reportedly battled MDD, experiencing frequent blue spells that concerned those around him. His melancholy seemed to fuel his deep empathy for others, especially during the Civil War, but it also cast a shadow over his life. Throughout history, treatments for depression were largely spiritual, such as prayer or confession, and did little to address the mental or emotional roots of the condition. In the 20th century, medical advancements led to more effective treatments, such as antidepressant medications, therapy, and lifestyle adjustments. Despite this progress, MDD remains a leading cause of disability worldwide, profoundly impacting millions. The enduring prevalence of MDD highlights the depth of this disorder's grip on society and the critical need for compassionate support and continued advancements in treatment. It remains a silent epidemic that affects people across all ages, cultures, and backgrounds. Obsessive-compulsive disorder. Obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, involves recurring intrusive thoughts, obsessions, and repetitive actions, compulsions, that individuals feel they must perform to alleviate anxiety. Historical records from ancient and medieval texts describe ritualistic behaviors and superstitions akin to OCD, where people engaged in repetitive actions, often believing them necessary to prevent bad luck or ward off curses. In many societies, these behaviors were misinterpreted as evidence of moral weakness, spiritual punishment, or even possession, leaving sufferers misunderstood and marginalized. Many individuals endured the disorder in silence, fearing ridicule or ostracism and lacking support or understanding. One prominent historical figure thought to have had OCD was Howard Hughes, the famous aviator and industrialist. Hughes developed severe germ-related obsessions, leading him to adopt strict, exhausting routines, such as obsessive hand-washing and a near-total avoidance of physical contact. These compulsions worsened over time, driving Hughes into complete isolation, where he spent his final years cut off from the world. Although OCD is often portrayed in popular culture as a quirky personality trait, severe cases are mentally and physically draining, consuming hours of each day and causing feelings of helplessness and isolation. Modern treatments, including cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and medications, have brought relief to many, though managing OCD remains challenging. Its historically misunderstood nature and persistent stigma underscore the need for continued mental health awareness, making it one of the most distressing and complex mental health disorders. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a lingering psychological response to trauma where sufferers endure recurring flashbacks, emotional numbness, nightmares, and hypervigilance. Symptoms resembling PTSD have been noted as far back as ancient times, with Greek historian Herodotus recording accounts of soldiers who exhibited uncontrollable emotional reactions long after the fighting ceased. By World War I, PTSD symptoms were referred to as shell shock, yet the condition was widely misunderstood. Many soldiers suffering from PTSD were stigmatized, accused of cowardice, or subjected to severe treatments such as electric shocks or isolation, as society lacked empathy and insight into the psychological toll of warfare. The experiences of Vietnam War veterans in the 20th century led to PTSD being formally recognized as a distinct disorder. This acknowledgement marked a significant turning point in mental health, helping establish a framework for understanding trauma's profound effects on the brain. Today, PTSD is acknowledged as a condition that affects not only soldiers, but also survivors of accidents, abuse, and natural disasters, with symptoms that can disrupt daily life and relationships. Trauma-focused therapies, including EMDR and cognitive behavioral therapy, along with medications, have helped many manage PTSD. Yet for many, the disorder remains a lifelong battle, impacting families, communities, and entire generations. Its historical and social significance highlights the ongoing need for mental health awareness, empathy, and the continued development of effective treatments to support those coping with the hidden wounds of trauma. Dissociative identity disorder. Dissociative identity disorder, DID, previously known as multiple personality disorder, stands as one of the most complex and controversial conditions in mental health, marked by two or more distinct identities coexisting within a single person. Historically, DID-like symptoms were frequently misattributed to supernatural causes, such as demonic possession, with individuals displaying these behaviors often facing severe consequences, including exorcisms, isolation, or imprisonment. By the late 19th century, however, the disorder began to be recognized as a mental health condition, often linked to severe childhood trauma, marking a significant shift toward understanding DID as a psychological response rather than a moral failing or supernatural affliction. The story of Shirley Mason, known as Sybil, brought DID into the public eye in the 1970s, generating widespread fascination and debate. Although certain elements of her case are disputed, her experiences highlighted the profound psychological toll DID takes and the protective role it can serve in helping individuals manage traumatic memories. Today, research suggests that DID develops as a defense mechanism where the mind creates alternate identities to compartmentalize overwhelming trauma. Treatments focus on integrating these identities to achieve a unified self, but this process is often lengthy and complex. DID's rare and mysterious nature continues to challenge both scientific understanding and societal perceptions, underscoring its lasting significance in the field of mental health. Anorexia nervosa. Anorexia nervosa, an eating disorder characterized by self-imposed starvation, is among the oldest recorded mental health disorders, with references as early as the Middle Ages. During the Renaissance, a phenomenon known as holy anorexia emerged, where young women fasted to achieve spiritual purity, often to the point of extreme physical frailty. Figures like St. Catherine of Siena reportedly practiced prolonged fasting as a form of religious devotion, believing that self-denial of food brought them closer to divine grace, though this was likely rooted in unrecognized psychological issues. By the 19th century, doctors began identifying anorexia nervosa as a distinct psychological disorder rather than viewing it through a moral or religious lens. Anorexia remains one of the deadliest mental disorders, with high mortality rates resulting from heart failure, organ damage, and complications from prolonged starvation. Public figures like Princess Diana courageously shared their experiences with anorexia, helping to raise awareness of its complex causes and the internal battles many sufferers face. Today, treatments for anorexia combine nutritional support, cognitive behavioral therapy, and medical monitoring. Though recovery can be a lifelong process due to the disorder's deep psychological roots. The persistence of anorexia highlights the dangerous interplay between mental health, personal identity, and societal beauty standards, emphasizing the disorder's enduring, devastating impact across cultures and centuries. Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease, now classified as a neurodegenerative disorder, was initially regarded as a form of insanity affecting the elderly, with sufferers experiencing memory loss, confusion, and disorientation. German psychiatrist Dr. Alois Alzheimer first identified it as a distinct condition in 1906 after studying a patient who exhibited profound memory loss, paranoia, and disordered thinking. Earlier symptoms resembling Alzheimer's were simply viewed as senility or age-related decline, and patients were often left to deteriorate without proper understanding or care. Historical figures such as King George III exhibited symptoms that modern historians believe were consistent with Alzheimer's-like cognitive decline. Alzheimer's disease is now one of the most prevalent mental health challenges associated with aging, affecting millions of people worldwide and placing tremendous emotional and financial burdens on families and caregivers. Though medications today can slow its progression, there is still no cure, and its effects remain devastating as it gradually robs individuals of their memories, personality, and independence. Alzheimer's continued impact reflects the urgent need for research and compassionate care, highlighting it as one of the most devastating disorders in history. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration of history's most devastating mental disorders enlightening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts or suggestions for future topics.